South Africa is this afternoon mourning the passing of Dr Frene Ginwala. She was the first national speaker of the country's democratically elected parliament. She died at the age of 90. Govan Whittles is outside the family home in Morningside, where no doubt it is a very difficult time for those inside that home at this moment. Govan.
Good afternoon, Dudu. It certainly is, and today South Africa has lost one of its most decorated freedom fighters, Dr Frene Ginwala, someone who was really at the tip of South Africa's efforts to liberate the country from the apartheid government. She's well known for a number of things. Firstly, her efforts in getting prominent South African leaders out of South Africa into exile. The ANC's longest-serving president, Oliver Tambo, among the first people that she had taken out. She also had an illustrious career as a journalist. While she was based in Tanzania, she had established the Spearhead, which was a newspaper which essentially reported on the atrocities being committed by the apartheid regime. She was at one point invited back into Tanzania by the president, Julius Nyerere, to be the editor of the Standard. She had broadcast on BBC One. She was writing for the Financial Mail as well. Of course, Dr Ginwala, having secured her doctorate from Oxford University in philosophy, being a doctor of philosophy, and of course her legacy will be expounded on throughout this week as South Africa remembers one of the people who really literally helped liberate the country. The family, of course, have a lot to celebrate in her life, but today is a day of sadness and mourning. We're outside the family home here in Morningside in Sandton, where we'll speak to Lawson Naidu. Mr. Naidu had worked in the office. He was also with Dr Ginwala in London while she was in exile, a close confidant of hers over the years, and he joins us now just for a few comments. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Naidu. Let's begin with how the family is doing at this time.
Yeah, it's obviously a very tough time for all of us, for the family. While she was ill and her health had deteriorated in recent years, it still came as a shock to us when she passed away, fortunately, peacefully at home last night.
Could we ask, was she ill?
Look, her health had not been great in recent times. She was 90 years old, so old age had been catching up with her. And but she was a fighter, and one never expected her to go as quickly as this.
All right. Could you just tell us what the family's plans are and what South Africans can expect within the next few days?
Well, Frene was a very, very private person. Her personal life was always kept well shielded, and she wanted a very private funeral, which the family will be arranging. We are, of course, in discussions with the presidency regarding an official memorial service that will be held in due course once we've worked out the logistics of that. But I think the nation does today mourn a great leader, a great woman leader who set the bar and broke many glass ceilings that other women were able to follow in her footsteps.
You were able to see her in action during many of her years in exile, also in South Africa as the founding speaker of the National Assembly. Talk to us about your history with Dr Ginwala and the kind of traits you observed.
I got to know her in the mid-1980s in the UK. Worked very closely with her on the sanctions campaign, particularly the oil and arms embargoes at the time. She was then based in the office of President Oliver Tambo. And I worked with her over 35 years in Parliament and various other areas. But she was a formidable intellect, one of the most formidable intellects I've come across in my life. And she was able to take a very complex piece of information and distill it in a matter of seconds. She had this incredible grasp of getting to the kernel of the issue and not beating about the bush. She was a hard taskmistress, as Madam Speaker was, and anyone who worked in Parliament with her at the time will tell you that she demanded very, very high standards. She set very high standards for herself and expected it from those around her, and she certainly molded me into the kind of person that I am today.
It is a little bit too early, but any fondest moments or anecdotes that you'd like to share? A few things she may have said or done?
Yeah, she had a fun side to her as well as the very serious side that I think we all saw. She loved music. She loved jazz music in particular. She would often ask me to arrange for her to go and listen to live jazz when she was in Cape Town. She loved cooking, gardening, growing chilies on her balcony in South London, and which she would bring to me at the office. And yeah, we shared many light moments together, as I say, working with her, traveling around the world with her, seeing her, and the way she was, treated by heads of state across the globe showed the kind of esteem that she was held in all over the world, from the USA to Japan to China to Europe.
As South Africa tries to really understand her legacy, remember her properly, it would take a lot of effort to try and remember everything. But what does the family believe that South Africans should be keeping in mind when remembering her this week?
Well, I think, probably her most well-known contribution in South Africa is to creating the institution of Parliament, to be a people's parliament, to be an open institution that was there to serve the interests of South Africa. And I think, that's a task that I certainly take to heart, and will continue to focus on that, because that was really probably her biggest legacy to us, to leave a parliament that was a vibrant part of our democracy, working alongside President Mandela in the 1990s, to create that institution as an outward-facing institution that needed to listen to the concerns of ordinary people, and to make our democracy a reality, which there's a lot of work still to be done.
Of course, and when reflecting on the life of Dr. Ginwala, she was someone who espoused excellence in what she had done. Of course, today we're living in a very troubled society. Did she share any of her views about our society today?
Yeah, look, I think like many people of her generation, she was not pleased with where we are as a society today, feeling that we could and should have done a lot better than we have. Was very despondent about the direction in which the country was moving, but remained hopeful right until the very end that the country and the political party to which she devoted her life, the African National Congress, would find its path again and do the right thing for the people.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawson Naidu, speaking to us outside the home of Dr. Frene Ginwala here in Johannesburg, an icon of our liberation struggle, a stalwart of the ANC, but also someone who tried to take democracy to the people through the institution of Parliament. There will be a lot said about Dr. Ginwala's legacy over the next few days, but for now the family is in mourning, and they will hold a private funeral for her. Thereafter, we're expecting the presidency to take the lead on a memorial service where much more will be reflected on when it comes to her legacy and her contribution to South Africa. We'll be back after this short break, but do stay tuned to Newzroom Afrika on channel 405 as we take a look at the day's top stories, but also reflect more closely on the life of Dr. Frene Ginwala, who has died today.